Great. Well, everybody, welcome to the UXPin Lo-Fi Collaborative Prototyping product demo here. Today, we will primarily be having our content designer, Ben Gramillion, showing you guys some of the capabilities of UXPin for creating rapid lo-fi prototypes. And afterwards, we will be able to answer some questions. And just to give some context, UXPin is a collaborative design platform. So we support the entire design process through multiple integrations with Sketch and Photoshop as well. So that way you can go from a idea, whether it's prototyped in UXPin or that you have designed in Photoshop or Sketch, and then you can build it in Fidelity in UXPin and eventually pass it off to developers. So it is a fairly robust platform for creating development-ready design with full documentation. And with that being said, I will pass this over to Ben, and let's get started with a little hands-on demo here.
All right. Well, thank you, Jerry. I appreciate that. Folks, welcome to the show. Glad you could join us. Today, like you said, we're going to go through the lo-fi part of design with UXPin. Now, if you haven't seen it before, this is the UXPin editor interface. It's got a whole bunch of widgets and buttons and panels and stuff. I'm going to take you through some of the major ones today. But before I get started, I want to say one thing real quick. Lo-fis are to be taken very seriously. They're fast and loose, sure, and we know they're going to change, yeah, but when you're designing a lo-fi, you need to actually spend some time designing it as best you can. I just switched over to a new project. Nothing going on here. And I know that design works well in constraints. So one of the first things I'm going to do is change this canvas, the working area. We're going to go down to an iPad portrait. Not necessarily because I'm designing an iPad app, but because I happen to know that it fits really well in the window. Now I'm going to do two things today. The first is going to be a simple marketing homepage, a basic landing page, just a lo-fi. And the second one is going to be an app with a navigation drawer. Now, I do that because at UXPin, we believe that not only should lo-fis be fast and loose, but they should also have some basic interactions to actually show people how things are supposed to work. Now let me just look up here for a quick box. Drag that into place. I'm going to option drag in my Mac, I'll drag in PCs, twice. Oops. Now this flushes out the very, very beginning of what we would call a landing page for the marketing site. Now you'll notice that I started in the middle. I ignored the navigation at the top because, well, people come here for this stuff. They don't come here just to surf around in the nav bar. They want to know what's going on, what's in it for them, why should they be here, and do they want to leave? So the last thing I want to put in is a call to action area. Now, depending on your layout, of course, this may not fit very well. The idea here is that they'll notice this first. They'll come over here, read the text, and they'll flow down naturally to the button area. Well, you know, I said this is fast and loose, but that's just a little too fast and loose. What we're going to do is pull in some real information here. The idea is that you want to give your stakeholders something to play with. You want to actually show some stuff in context. And whenever possible, you want to show things with real or realistic content. In this case, I'm pulling in the bridge photo. And I want to make that as perfect as I can. So I'm going to turn on the layout grid. It's Option G on a Mac, Alt G on PCs. Hold down Shift and drag this JPEG down a little bit. UXPin supports JPEGs, PNGs, GIFs, animated GIFs, and SVGs. Just about everything you can put into a web page. Now this is looking a little rough here. So what I'm going to do is pull in some real text. That's Command F on a Mac, Control F on Windows. Drag in a bit of text. kill these two. And once again, I'm going to Option drag to make a copy. And I'm going to fill this one with a little lorem ipsum. Is that good design practice? No. Is that good for presentations? Oh, you betcha. So let's knock this up just a little bit. Instead of 16, let's go for, say, 32. And I'm going to Option G one more time. Make sure we are more or less on the grid. There we are. Now that call to action is very important. Delete. I'm going to find a button. And instead of search, I'm going to say sign up. And instead of being 32 pixels, we're going to shrink that down to, let's go for about 16. Now, given it won't be actually 16 pixels when we get finished, it probably won't be the shade of blue. In fact, it might be a shade of red over here. Let's go ahead and grab that. Get my color swatch. And if you're on a Mac, you can use the system-wide color picker. Come in here and grab a color. Close that out. Maybe that's a little too brown for my taste. As long as I've got the hue set up, I can adjust the shade. That's a little better. We can always come back and tweak it later. The idea behind lo-fis is that they're going to change. You know they're going to change. The layout will change. We'll get real text. The colors will change. The photo might change. It's all about the change. Now let's get some stuff up here. Navigation bar. And I'm going to throw in an image placeholder for the would-be logo. Now, UXPin has hundreds of elements and components for you to build your stuff with. Some of them have special features, like the nav bar here. Let's say I want to change that to this is a drop-down. You can control the usual stuff. The typography, you just saw me do that. The color, no big deal. Horizontal or vertical, that's nice. Border, okay. Colors, the real fun stuff happens down here in the page options. I'm going to change this to this is a drop down. Changes automatic, and it's saved automatically. Now in just a minute, I'm going to show you what that looks like. Well, you know what? Let's take a look at it now. I'm going to preview to see what this looks like. Simulate mode lets you actually try out the product. Anyone with this URL can play with and comment on this design, even if they don't have a UXPin account. Very handy for sharing with stakeholders who are not immediately on your team, but do have some say in the project. Now it looks like I'm just a few pixels off here and there, so I'm going to come back over here, bump this up a bit with my arrow keys, bump this down with the arrow keys. And when I go back to the preview, a quick reload shows that things are now a little lined up. Once again, this is real rough, but it doesn't have to look too rough. If you want to impress people, it needs to be kind of realistic. You need to pay attention to those details. So earlier I promised you an app, and here we're going to build one out. Now in UXPin, the white area is the canvas. This is the viewable area on your project. The gray area is off canvas, that's hidden initially on the previews. So let me grab a couple of pings that I had pre-made. Put these together in Photoshop. I have the app interface, and I've got a navigation bar. Works like that. The idea is that the navigation bar, when the menu is clicked, will slide into the interface. But you notice there's a problem. It's underneath. It needs to be on top. Well, that's easy to fix. We just take image 1, move it on top of image 2 in the layers panel, and there it goes. Now I'm going to move this around with what's called an advanced animation. Any element in UXPin, from groups to smart elements to graphics to buttons, can be made interactive. That is, you can make them clickable. But I don't want this whole graphic to be one big click. I just want the menu and then later the X to be clickable. So how do I do that? Hotspots. Command F, look for a hot. A hotspot is an invisible element. Users won't see it when previewing. It's just kind of like a span in HTML. It just sits there until you give it a reason to be. I'm going to option drag that over here. And here's that reason. On clicking this, I'm going to have everything slide over. Click Interactions, New Interaction, on click, and Advanced Animation. Now, an advanced animation is different than a regular interaction in that you're going to move several things over a series of steps across the screen. One step in this case goes right here. The close icon is even simpler. New interaction, on click, advanced animation, and everything snaps back into place. That's because advanced animations begin at your original layout. Well, that's perfect. That's exactly where I want it to go. So let's save this. Let's jump over to the simulation, the preview. I'm going to click this on, slides into place. I click it off, it disappears. On and off. And I know it looks a little janky there through the webinar software. It's pretty smooth once you try it yourself. So folks, that is a really, really quick overview of UXPin and what it can do in the editor. We looked at building out a basic box-based prototype. We looked at simple interactions that are actually called advanced animations. We looked at importing real graphics, adjusting the typography, and using advanced elements like the navigation bar. We glanced at the grid, and we thought in terms of content first, leading people down to the all-important sign up button in this case. You know, I still don't like that brown. Let's make an adjustment here. That's a little better. Maybe this will come down. We'll leave enough space because we know this text was going to go realistic. Lo-fis are designed to change. It's going to happen. So you want to work fast, but you want to get those details right. Take some practice. Lo-fis are not to be taken lightly.
Great job, Ben. That was fantastic. We've got a couple of questions here, so let's get through it. I think the first question that we can take a look at is, let's say for lo-fi prototyping, I'm working with a team and we want to make sure that even in low fidelity that we're at least working off the same consistent elements and the same sort of patterns. How might UXPin support that? So I'm thinking, Ben, here, maybe looking at the team libraries could be something interesting just to quickly showcase.
Sure, we can do that. I've got two things to show you, in fact. The first one is a team library. Come over to the libraries panel. You can see all those hundreds of elements that I mentioned earlier. They're organized into these groups. We call them libraries. And there's one at the top called a team library. This is stuff that I've built into my account. And to get it out, I just drag and drop components into place. You can make these shareable with your entire team, so everyone stays on with the basic set of elements. Each one is editable and unique. That is, it's not a copy, it's not a symbol exactly. So if I put this up here, I slide the headline over to the side, and boy, am I making a mess. drag another one of these out, that line is still back over here to the far left. Excuse me, I misspoke. So what you've got is the ability to start with a template and then change it to fit what you need. Now we can elaborate on that just a little bit. Instead of working on a design for a page of a project, let me step back over to the dashboard. That's the project management part of UXPin. I'm going to search for a design system. I've got a couple of versions running around. Let's edit this one. The other way that people can get in and play with stuff, if they don't want to use the library, or they want to make adjustments to the actual master elements, is to have a project with your components built in. Let me come over here to the sitemap. I can show you that we've got all these buttons, all these widgets and panels. This is the basic stuff. We've also built in a series of reveals, tabs, for example, an accordion. Various widgets, drop down, for example, and even an accordion example. Now let me preview this one, show you what I mean. Once again, interactions are imperative whenever you do this, and UXPin will save interactions into the custom library. For example, making those icons appear on hover, making these graphics change on hover, or making a modal appear and disappear. So that's two ways you can do it. The first is with a custom library, team library that is, and the second one is by having a dedicated project to hold your elements.
Yeah, it looks great, Ben. The next question, we had a few questions around this is, let's say even in my lo-fi prototype, I want to start sharing that with developers and just start speaking the same language with them in terms of specifications and assets. How might UXPin spec mode support that? And could you show that real quick?
Sure, we can take a look. Let's say I'm going to assign some code to this button over here. Double click to get into the group. Head over to specification. And you see I've already got some code assigned to this button, had that preset, wrote it myself. You can do similar things for your H1s, H2s, H3s, pretty much anything that you want. You can add multiple fields, like a best use case scenario text, bits of code, just give it a quick name. It helps if you spell things correctly. Saving is automatic. And when you preview this, go up to spec, click on an item, specification, and here's that code I assigned to it. Spec mode will also give you pretty much everything in the entire document if you've clicked on nothing. All the colors, all the typography, even some redlining to show you exactly where things are in this prototype.
Gotcha. That looks great, Ben. And the next question we had was regarding collaboration in UXPin. So let's say I've created my collaborative lo-fi prototype, and now I want some feedback from my developers and my stakeholders. How do I do that?
That's a really good question. There are a couple ways to do that, and the most popular is in comment mode of preview. What you do is you enter comments, and then anywhere on the canvas, you can click to add a note. You can make this internal to your team, or you can make this public to all stakeholders, even if they don't have a UXPin account. You can notify certain people or not, like I don't need to notify myself. I can assign it like a to-do item, or I can simply add the comment. And there it is.
Great. And at this point, all the developer would have to do is, since they'd get notified that the comment appeared, they would just have to come back and see what you wrote and reply back directly in UXPin. And I think
that's right. Just give this a click, and there it goes.
Yep. And it's also worth noting that if you just want to comment on designs in UXPin, you don't actually need a UXPin account for that. So, for instance, you could share this design if you're an agency, and you could share it with your client, and they could comment on it. And let's see here. So let's take a look here. All right. We've got a question here about, okay, so we answered the collaboration part. And all right, so the next question is, how does version control in UXPin work? So great, this is my first like lo-fi iteration. If I want to make sure that people are going to be working off of the right version later on, once we increase fidelity, what's the best way to do that?
Version control is something that, frankly, we're redeveloping. But right now, what you can do is come over to iterations. I'm going to create a new version. I'm going to give it a sensible name. In this case, just demo number 2. Sure, let's copy all the comments. And now I can make some changes. So I move these over here, just as a quick demo. Later, when I go back to iterations, I can revert to that or see what it looked like earlier with the buttons in line.
Gotcha. Yeah, and let me go over here. I think Lindsay wanted to make an interesting point here, just to help people better grasp the capabilities that that we've shown here. So Ben, do you want to have Lindsay chime in here for a second? Just unmute her.
That would be fine.
Hey guys, thanks. Yeah, I noticed we got some questions about how UXPin is different than, say, Axure or Adobe XD or some of the other prototyping tools on the market. The big way that UXPin is different is that UXPin is not just a prototyping solution, right? We give you prototyping capabilities, but UXPin serves a bigger purpose. It is a collaborative platform. It's all cloud-based. It's all centralized. And it covers the entire process. So what it really allows your team to do is to simplify their process, to stay up to date, and to have accessibility to all the files they need 24/7. So especially in the enterprise where we have remote teams, this is extremely important, right? When you log into UXPin, you're going to have access to all the files you need, and you're going to have those files from ideation through handoff in one location. So rather than moving from tool to tool to tool for each phase of the design, you can just centralize your process here, free up your brain space to focus on, what you love doing, which is solving business problems and creating beautiful products.
Yeah, that's kind of a great little overview there. And let's take a look here at what other questions we have here. So let's take a look. All right, we covered iterations, and so we had a couple questions here regarding the UXPin user testing, which of course is a feature that's in beta right now. Ben, would you be able to quickly show people how you might go about quickly validating this lo-fi prototype that you just created and have collaborated on with your stakeholders?
Sure, let's take a look at that. Like Jerry said, this is in beta, so I make no guarantees, but here we go. If I slide over here to the top left, come down to usability testing. We've got a few built-in defaults for the 4-step process. For one thing, you can change all the text you want. Say it's not really going to take an hour, you can change that to whatever you need. You can copy paste, put in your own note, no problem whatsoever. Next, you can assign people to a task. Instead of just saying, what do you think? You can go in and say, okay, see if you can find the click now button. See if you can find how to discover the About Us page.
Oh, you can just type something in the task description. Basically, this functions the same way as you would for any user test, where you would list out the tasks, and then this next step here, of course, would be you would set what the settings are going to be for the participant. And yep, we'll let them close the task. We'll let them see the sitemap. And then this is finally just the last step of the way. Once you've got the preview link, you would just send it to a participant, and then you can start a live moderated and recorded usability testing session. All of the clicks, the facial expressions, the audio are all going to be automatically recorded afterwards. So you can see here really that the platform truly is an end-to-end sort of enterprise solution. The goal that we really set out to achieve is to help designers be able to create, to collaborate, to validate their designs consistently in one place, so that you could go from a lo-fi prototype, whether you create it in UXPin or in Photoshop or Sketch, you put that into UXPin, design it up, collaborate, test it, and then eventually hand it off to your developers. And let's take a quick look here. All right, so looks like we are pushing up on the end of time for this demo. And let's take a look here. I think the last question that we will take here, since we are running out of time, is going to be the well, actually, we've got this question here. So I think this might be better for Lindsay here. Ben, do you want to unmute her real quick?
Right.
Here, I can unmute. I'm right here.
Gotcha. Okay, so we can actually get into, well, looking here, we got a little bit of time. So we had a pretty general question, which is, what are some of the benefits of the UXPin Enterprise Plan? So what might that be more suitable for in terms of teams and needs?
The Enterprise Plan offers a lot of customizations over just the out-of-the-box team plans. It also includes services for teams. So first, in terms of scaling, the Enterprise Plan has an advanced user management system that allows you to rebuild your org structure right within the application, meaning you can assign the same roles you have on your team now to those people within the app. So as you scale up your team in UXPin, you may start with 5, 10, 15, but we have teams of hundreds who use UXPin together. They're able to keep their work very organized within the plan. Second, it covers end-to-end. So we've demoed spec mode this week, style guides, documentation. These are all tools that help with the handoff, right, and the process pieces. You can use the framework that the Enterprise Plan provides to implement a process and make that process accessible and visible for your entire team. We also have account management and design services and priority support and trainings for your teams, so that as you implement UXPin, we're going to help you guys with adoption and onboarding so that your teammates learn how to use it really quickly and they use it in the right way so that you have an awesome and successful experience with it.
Yeah, that's kind of a great little overview here. And Ben, I was thinking maybe we can try something here where, let's see, if you want to send me the link for the file that you just created on preview, and then that way I can add a few comments, and then we can show people how the live commenting kind of works.
Sure, Jerry, let me get that over to you.
Great, yeah, just send it to me in Slack, and I'll just drop a few comments, and then we can switch over to the preview mode on your computer once I'm done, and we can see how those comments are sort of live populating there. Great. So I will click into there, and I'm going to drop a few comments, but while I'm doing that, let's take a look here. We've got another question here, which is, okay, got 6 questions. We had a question around doing more advanced states in UXPin. So how might that work in UXPin if I'm working on something that is going to be fairly complex? Maybe you could show how the states would function and how to modify those.
The states, okay. Well, first quick note for people who don't know, multi-state elements in UXPin are different combinations or configurations of the same sets of elements. For example, I've got these custom radio buttons that I can click through. I'm not really turning these on and off. I'm just changing the entire group. Same thing for this switch. The circle isn't really moving. We're just looking at a different set of stuff. Now here's how that might work. Jump back over to the dashboard. I'm going to call up a small project I built out that is in no way related to other apps you've seen before, not with any whatsoever. When we get more complicated in UXPin, we actually use different combinations of the same basic interactive building blocks. For example, this is an advanced animation. You saw me do something similar before, but it also changes out. This photo is a multi-state element. As soon as it disappears, there's a very, very slight hesitation while it changes the photo and puts it back into place. Same thing for play pause, and of course the download switch you saw earlier. Now another way you can have multi-state elements work is to change the categories in this case with a simple sliding action. In this case, it reconfigures the combinations of those colors. Now I hear Jerry clicking around, so let's go back and check that out real quick.
Yep, I have dropped in my comments there.
Let me think. I believe that was this character.
Yep, and there you go. Dropped in a few comments there.
Jerry, why don't you add one more live while we're here?
Yeah, sure. I'll add one here under the disabled button. And there we go. I just added comment number 3 right there. And comment 4. And then it might also be cool to showcase how you can tag other people to chime in. So with the @ button, for instance, we can actually call other people into the conversation, other people on your UXPin team.
Let's see, Jerry, what's your handle?
Oh, I might not be actually on the same team here. Maybe there's somebody else. Yeah, Ryan. Ryan could chime in. And there you go. And when you do that, Ryan would then get a notification, much in the same way as Google Docs. I think that's the easiest way to think about how our commenting system works, is it's virtually identical to Google Docs in the way that you can tag people, and how Google Docs now allows you to assign comments as tasks to people. And Ben, since we're focusing on collaboration, maybe we could also look at, let's say once we've got this design in a fairly finalized state and we want to get formal sign off from, let's say, a VP of design or VP of product management, how would we use the stakeholder approval capability so that we can get that, kind of bottom line, this looks okay? Oh, Ben, are you there? Oh, I think you might be on mute.
Sorry, Jerry, I just cut out there for a minute.
Yeah, no worries.
Can you hear me okay?
Yep, I hear you just fine now. Were you able to hear what I said?
No, I'm afraid it cut out.
Okay, no problem. I was just asking, let's say I've got this design fairly finalized and I want to get the formal okay from my design manager or from my VP of product. How could I use stakeholder approvals for that?
Okay, I believe that's back in the editor, is it not?
I believe it is.
When we share,
There we go.
Jerry, it seems to have moved on me here.
Let's take a look here. There we go. We can send we can send that email address, or sorry. Yep, so when you want to share it, all you have to do is just go to email here. You could type in, who you want to share it with, and then you can just add a custom message. So for instance, hey, does this look okay? Does this look good to go? And they could just respond right back to you, in which case you get a notification for that as well. So yeah, that's kind of a really fast way to go straight from your design and be able to communicate externally with your stakeholders. And let's take a look here, see what other questions we've got. We had a lot of great questions here. Yeah, so I think on a nice closing note might be to give people a high-level overview of the project dashboard and sort of the collaborative capabilities there, in terms of everybody getting on the same page around the status of designs and all the projects that are active versus what requires action.
We can look at that, certainly. What we call the dashboard is your project management area. Each folder here contains multiple prototypes. You can also group these folders into these different sections. For example, let's say I want to take my Design University part. I'm going to move it into this section called Internal. Close that off. Well, no, actually, I want to keep it public facing. And it's worth noting that these are simply labels that I gave them. It doesn't really affect whether or not people can see them or not. That's all in the preview link.
Great.
Now, I've got a team, a few people on my immediate account, and I can control who they are and what they do by clicking that Manage button. For example, Ryan is a creator as opposed to a manager or a collaborator. And if I want to know exactly what that means, I click over here on Role, and I see that creator can't see my other projects, but he can do a lot more, like accessing the editor, making new projects, and adding users to projects. I trust Ryan that far. Let me just click into one of these to show you what it looks like. Now, by default, everything comes down as an icon. I changed it to list view for my own convenience, but you can adjust that right here. Get those handy thumbnails, see what everything looks like. Jerry, does that answer the question that came through?
Yeah, I think that is a great little overview there. And let's take a look here. So let's see if we've got any more questions. It looks like we've answered all of the questions here. So I think we are safe to close this out. We kind of gave a really high-level overview of the collaborative capabilities in UXPin. Of course, we can dive into a ton more detail, and that would really make more sense for going into the community section of UXPin, where we have a lot of videos and a lot of written materials around how to explore the collaboration function in UXPin deeper. You can see Ben's got that pulled up right there, and the URL is simply www.uxpin.com/community. So there's a lot of more product materials available there. And otherwise, I think we are good to wrap up the session here. Thank you, everybody, for coming with such great questions today. And Ben and Lindsay, great job on the presentation and on walking everybody through what you were doing. Let me find the URL for our next session here, which is with Amanda Linden, and that starts at 1 p.m. So we've got about 25 minutes until this starts, and this is going to be our closing keynote. It's hard to believe that we are now on the last session of Enterprise UX Virtual Summit 2017. She's going to be discussing the future of enterprise design. So let me get that URL for you folks. And of course, if you'd like to follow along the conversation, the hashtag is hashtag EUX2017. And here is the URL for the next session here. And of course, if you are interested in checking out UXPin, there's our homepage there, www.uxpin.com. If you have any more questions regarding the product, feel free to email hello@uxpin.com or sales@uxpin.com, and we will respond to you very promptly. I promise you, unlike other companies, this is not just a black hole of an email. We have real people that monitor and try to respond as quickly as we can. So feel free to reach out to us. We'd love to hear from you and just get you as much information as you need, and see if we might be useful for your design process. Otherwise, again, it's been great having everybody on the sessions and on the product demos as well. And I'll see you at the next session, which is going to be the last session of our summit. Ben and Lindsay, great job, and I'll see you guys later.
Thank you, Jerry. Have a good one, everyone.
All right, take care.